Hi, welcome to the Underdog Podcast. I'm your host, Gary London, and today we're going to talk about winter driving. All right, in order to talk about winter driving, I don't know what the weather's like about around where you're living, but where I am right now, it is snowing. So let's get into the proper mood with our green screen magic. And now, yes, folks, we are outside in the cold. Not really. I'm safely and warm in my living room, but it does look like it's snowing in here. And it just kind of gets me in the mood to talk about winter driving. One of the things that all of us have to do around here. And now I hear all the time, I cannot stand driving in the winter. I can't handle the snow. That drive took me 3 hours. It was agonizing. It was terrible. Well, I break the norm as far as winter driving go, and I embrace winter driving. I love it. I don't just like it. I love driving in the winter. Now, it's obvious to me that people that don't enjoy winter driving aren't very good at it. And there are some misconceptions about what is best to drive in the snow, whether front-wheel drive is better or four-wheel drive is better, or obviously rear-wheel drive, not good, okay? But we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to have a flashback now. We're flashing back to when I was about 17 years old, driving for the first time. I'm a skier. Live in Ellicottville at the time, Ellicottville, New York, and there's Holiday Valley ski areas there. I'm an alpine ski racer back then. My coach, I have two coaches at the time. I've got Miguel Azcarate and I've got Indigo Diorbe, and I think that's how you say his last name. None of us really know how to say his last name, Indigo. Anyway, so these guys come from Spain, and they know a thing or two, not just about turning skis, but about winter driving. So Miguel, my coach, he does some pretty some crazy things. At the time we're driving, keep in mind, at the time I'm driving a front wheel drive car that's got a pretty wide wheelbase. I can't exactly remember entirely what it was, but so I'm driving pretty bravely, but I'm never really exceeding like 30 or 40 miles per hour in bad snow, and that's acceptable for most people. These guys, Miguel and Indigo, these guys were insane drivers in the winter. They would find a way to put their cars seemingly sideways, drift. And they taught me to drift a car. And the way they did this, the way they accomplished this feat without killing us, which they almost did a few times, was by using the handbrake. So this is how typically a front-wheel drive car handles in the snow. Typically, they handle pretty good straight line, but the moment that you okay. And that's I've got guests on the Underdog Podcast today. So never mind the crazy man that just walked through the seemingly cold outside, which is he just defied the laws of physics. Anyway, so front-wheel drive cars want to drive straight, so he would grab the handbrake. The car this would lock up the back wheels. The car would turn slightly enough to get the car heading in the right direction, and then they would let go of the handbrake, and you'd kind of regain traction again, and the car would be turned and then going straight into the direction you want. So that solved the problem of how to turn a front-wheel drive car. Basically, front-wheel drive cars handled pretty well. Now, the problem I have is with four-wheel drive vehicles. Now, the theory on the street is that four-wheel drive vehicles are what you want in the winter. Well, once in a while, especially with the newer four-wheel drive cars, it is impossible to tell whether or not they are in four-wheel drive or not. So at some point, I'm driving my Ford Escape, and hey, well, let's just we might as well just pull up some footage on this, kind of give you a better idea of what I'm talking about here. Okay, so this is my first car here. This is a Mercury Tracer. This is a good front wheel drive car. This was maybe possibly the best handling car I've ever had in the snow. And what was so good about my Mercury Tracer was I'm doing like Weatherman here. I just went right out of the frame. Look at want to see my hand disappear? Freaky. Okay, so the wheelbase was pretty wide, and the car sat pretty low to the ground. So it made the Tracer an ideal car for driving in the snow. Now my okay, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. Okay, now my Ford Escape, I was driving last year, and I got to a stoplight, went to make a left-hand turn, and the car wasn't turning. It was the same kind of deal as a front-wheel drive car. I didn't know whether or not the vehicle was in four-wheel drive or not. There's no manual four-wheel drive button. So at about 10 miles an hour, I slam into a curb that I just my car's not turning. So what do? You hit the gas, I guess. So I hit the curb extra hard because I slammed on the gas. I didn't know what else to do. There's no handbrake. There's nothing to control or keep the car or get the car to turn. So what do? You just have to go where the car wants to go. Now, generally, I would say that four-wheel drive vehicles are very, very good at going straight. Now, if you keep them at a low speed, you're going to be fine. Now, that isn't fun. To me, fun is taking a car like this and drifting and putting it sideways. Skiers generally make good drivers. Don't be afraid to let the car slide a little bit. This is what I drive now. I got to remember it's backwards. This is what I drive now in the winter. It's a Mercury Milan. It's maybe not as good as the Tracer, but what it does very well is that the traction is excellent on this car because it's so heavy. It's an extra heavy car. Incidentally, I didn't bring this up, but the whole drifting idea with the handbrake only works in a stick shift. So I didn't bring that up before. I'm not, don't quote me. Maybe you might be able to do it on an automatic, but I don't think so. I think it's just for a standard transmission. So that's it. Go out there and have fun in the snow. Winter driving is not supposed to be scary. Well, it obviously sometimes it is. And some other maybe a couple tips to go along with my little story about drifting and all that is that it's very difficult if you get behind a slow car. Try to stay off of your brakes. The brake is your enemy. The more you're just using your gas pedal, the better. And obviously, you don't want to drive too fast. On the other hand, if you start to learn to drift, you will become more brave as you go, and after a while, you might find yourself hitting 50 miles per hour on in pretty unsatisfactory conditions and feeling pretty confident about it. So that'll do it for our podcast today. This is the Underdog Podcast. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to my channel. I promised I'd have a video today, and it actually was about a topic. So I think we're on track. Tune in again for another episode. Oh, it's still rolling. What do you want to say?
The like button's getting a lot of use lately, so just lightly tap it.
Don't hit the like button too hard. You might break it.
It's been having a lot of abuse lately.
Don't abuse the like. Don't. Yeah.
button.